All right, here we are.
What's up, dude?
How you doing, man? How's it going?
Good. Streaming this to my channel too, just so you know.
Absolutely, yeah, of course. So, Jason Arns is not feeling well. He was not able to come on. You've come on with Jay before on Anabolic Academy.
Mhm.
So, I just want to say, I want to give you a great compliment, man. Since the first time you've been on my channel, you've always come on every time I asked. It means a lot to me.
Oh, I appreciate it, man.
It really does mean a lot to me because, I mean, your channel's bigger than mine, but I'm sure when you first started, you faced the same thing where it's hard getting guys on when you're a smaller podcast, you know? So the guys that are become a friend to me and a friend to the show, I appreciate greatly. So thank you for coming on and doing me this favor, man. Thank you so much.
I'm just a bodybuilding nerd, just like you, man. I love talking
Yeah,
shop.
that's for sure.
That's what I do all day.
Yeah, tell me about it. I know. It's unbelievable. But we were talking that you went to Detroit and you said Fuad puts on a great production.
Oh my God, what a great show! Everybody should know if you're in that area, that's one of the best smaller IFBB shows that I've been to. I mean, it's just fantastic. That and the Tampa's well done too.
Yeah.
But it's a bigger production. But man, what support Fuad and what he's doing up there. I mean, I think they're with the lighting, the black backdrop, and they make it about the athletes and the audience. It's the way a show should be done.
Yeah, when I did my wrap up, of course, I concentrated on the athletes and the outcome, but I also gave Fuad his just due, and I said the good part about it is he puts on a tremendous production. The live stream is flawless. The backdrop is flawless. The entertainment part is flawless between when he does the King of Detroit. That is really good for bodybuilding. And I think more promoters should take a page out of his book instead of just worrying about how much money am I going to make. Because if you put on a good show, people are going to come. And you said it was a sold-out crowd, right?
Yeah, it was packed crowd, and I've run businesses my whole life, and that's always been kind of my thing, man. Is like, don't worry about the money. I'm not saying you shouldn't try to make money as a business. You definitely need to be viable. But if you put a good product and a good service out, focus on that, and the business will come. And I think that's what he's doing there. It just you put a good product out, and people will support it.
100%. And that's kind of what he's famous for. His product line, his sponsorships, his clothing line. It's all quality stuff.
Yep.
You could say what you want about him, you don't like him, whatever the case may be. I mean, so on and so forth. I've had not issues, but I've invited him on. I think I've invited him on like 3 or 4 times and he's never come on. All right, fine. But I've had Paul on, his friend, who's a great guy. I had Guy Cisternino on when he was on his show all the time. So, but that being said, you can't take away what he does for bodybuilding in that Detroit Pro. He puts on an excellent show. So kudos to Fuad. So this is Anabolic Academy. Obviously, this is going to be brought to you by I Prevail Subs, which is we know is Jason Arns' line. The link is in the description, and the discount code SNS10 is also in the description. Go and check it out. He's also got clothing apparel, hats, shirts, and he has great products. So go check it out. All right. Big Paul is going to help me today. And actually, a lot of times I pick a topic on Anabolic Academy that I'm not too good at. So I want to talk about the best pre-workout meal and the best post-workout meal for obviously off-season and on-season. So my take on it, let's start with pre-workout meals. My take on it was I would basically have a decent meal, protein, carbohydrates, greens, but I never liked to be full. I would try to take it at me at least an hour before I trained because I never liked that full feeling. It kind of got in the way, especially when I would do things like, bent over rows or deadlifts. And when you're really pushing down on the stomach, when you're squatting, it really comes up. So I try to make it like at least 45 minutes to an hour before, so it's slightly digested by that point, and I get a good workout, and I don't feel like I'm going to puke. But so is that accurate? And what exactly should a solid pre-workout meal include?
Well, are we using insulin or no insulin? That changes the equation.
Yeah, okay. That's actually a really good point. Let's go with no insulin, and then we'll go into insulin.
So with the no insulin scenario, I like to use a combination of simple and complex carbohydrates so we can spike our own insulin, right? So I like to do, for me, I find some sort of rice-based carbohydrate is well tolerated. I keep the fats low pre-workout, um, fats low post-workout so the food digests a little bit quicker.
Okay.
I mean, sometimes I'll run insulin, sometimes I won't. It just depends. But if I'm not running insulin, man, probably my favorite thing I like to do, it's real simple. I like to eat chicken breast.
Okay.
Sometimes I'll do a protein shake if I want to keep it lighter. Although protein shakes tend to bother my stomach more than
food
does. They tend to bloat me up more. I'll do a combination of rice and then I'll do some orange juice with creatine and glutamine in it as part of my pre-workout drink. Sometimes I'll have a banana. If I'm doing insulin, I'll take a banana because we want to get some potassium in with it as well. But it really just depends on what I'm doing. But I like just keeping it simple: rice, orange juice, and chicken breast. It's real simple, something super simple like that. And that's typically how I'll do it. If I'm going to do a pre-workout, I'll mix a little bit of the pre-workout in with the orange juice. I'll dilute it with water. I'll do half water. But that way, we have some simple carbohydrates in that are going to cause an insulin spike with our body. If you use a glucose meter, you can see it. Your blood sugar will rise rapidly and come back down. And then I use an intra-workout shake as I'm during that workout window, because we're going to have increased GLUT4 transport, which is going to mean more glucose uptake during the workout.
Okay. So a couple of questions. Okay. Why no fats before a workout?
It's, you can do it both ways. You can add a little bit of fat in, but primarily the thought here is if we're going high carbohydrate, we don't want to mix high fats and high carbohydrates in the meal. I look at it as like a sliding scale. If we want to go higher carbohydrates, we need to pull the fats down. If we're going to go lower carbohydrates, we push the fats up a little bit. The problem is when you push the carbs really high, and you're in a caloric surplus, you can get in a situation where your body will store that body fat. Now, sometimes I have some people that have problems with going hypo during their workout. Some guys will get a little hypo. In that situation, I might put a little bit of nut butter or something in with the pre-workout meal to slow down the digestion a bit. And another thing is fats just sit heavy in your stomach when you're and in my mind, I want that rapid hit of carbohydrates, so we do get an insulin spike. I like to keep things a little bit lighter. I want things to digest easily. Honestly, whitefish digest even easier than chicken if you wanted something that's really light pre-workout. Sometimes I'll even do cereal, rice checks or something like that. I'll do. Yep.
Yeah. Now, what do you mean by some guys get hypo?
There's some dudes that blood sugar will get low intra-workout where they bottom out. An intra-workout shake with some carbohydrates in it should help alleviate some of that. But sometimes I'll put just, like I used to get once in a while, we'd get hypo during my workout. And so I would just put a little bit of almond butter and I'd do cream of rice with a little bit of almond butter in it.
Okay. So for somebody who is a beginner and intermediate lifter, basically what you're saying is a fast breakdown protein, like maybe a whitefish, rice. I'm assuming you mean white rice.
White rice, yeah, jasmine rice or cream of rice, either one.
Okay. And then you do some kind of simple sugar like orange juice.
Yep, simple sugar, orange juice, banana, even jam, something like that.
Okay. All right. Now, The intra shake, is that only carbohydrates, or you're talking branch chains as well?
I put essential amino acids in it, so I have some leucine in there, which, I don't know how much of a difference it makes. It's one of
Right.
those things, it's the 1%er. If you have your diet completely buttoned up, you're a guy that's doing everything, dotting all your I's, crossing all your T's, and you're extremely detailed with everything, then having a little bit of essential amino acids, some leucine in it, intra workout might provide a little bit extra benefit long term as far as increasing mTOR and all that
And
downstream.
the fast acting carbohydrate, I'm assuming you mean something like a carbolin, not like a dextrose.
During the workout, we want something that's going to sit a little easier on the stomach. Any kind of highly branched dextrin, so something like HBCD, the carbolin would be another one. Something that's going to be a slower digesting carbohydrate. The problem with dextrose is dextrose can cause rapid gastric thing. Basically, you get the bubble guts, you shit your pants.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't want that.
Right. So the highly branched cyclic dextrin, or all these high molecular weight carbohydrates that you hear about, like HBCD or carbolin. Basically, what it is, you have these molecules that have all of these dextrose. They have little pieces of dextrose attached to them, and they get plucked off slowly while you're working out. So sipping on a drink would essentially do the same thing. But that what that does is allow that to make it down to your small intestine, and so you don't get all the high gastric emptying. Basically, you shit your pants.
Yeah, I don't need any more of that. I'm already borderline.
Well, the old school guys that used to drink the dextrose shakes, you know what I'm talking about, where you'd be running to the bathroom mid workout to shit yourself.
Yeah.
Because it pulls all the fluid into your colon. So these highly branched carbohydrates, these high molecular weight carbohydrates, eliminate some of that. Sometimes, dude, like if I'm in a pinch, I'll just grab a Gatorade and sip on it while I'm working out.
Okay. Now let's. I got a couple of questions, but now let's say you're using insulin.
Mm-hmm.
So you're an advanced lifter, you're a competitive lifter, maybe you're a national level, pro level, and now you're using an insulin protocol. So then what would your pre-workout meal be?
Same stuff, just more carbs.
Just increase the carbohydrates.
Yeah, and that's the thing where guys get wrong with insulin, is they think more is better with insulin, and that's not the case. You match your insulin to your carbohydrate intake, and you have to keep in mind, I know, like the old school recommendation, like you hear people talking about, was 1 unit insulin per 10 grams of carbs, but that's what diabetics do, right?
Okay.
We're not diabetics, and you're also going to be lifting, and so like you start. I don't want to tell people doses specifically, but you want to start very conservative with insulin doses. But I like, same deal, some combination of simple carbohydrates and then something to keep things sustained. And the idea is that you're going to increase the GLUT4 transport that's going to be happening anyway during the workout, and you can basically shove more glucose into your cells, glucose, amino acids, all these other things into you. Then it becomes probably more critical to have when I hear guys doing a shit ton of carbs intra workout with the amino acids, that's code for I'm using insulin.
I see. Okay. Now, the insulin you use during that time, is it a fast acting or the intermediate acting?
Oh, no, you want to, rapid is the only one that makes sense to me.
Okay.
That's another thing that people get confused with the insulin. There's, people will be using something like Lantus, a basal insulin, which is going to have really no effect on mealtime, glucose disposal during meals. It's not really going to have any effect. So minimal effect on that. It's a longer acting insulin. It's designed to replace the background insulin that's present in your body all throughout the day and bring down your baseline glucose levels. It doesn't really have much of an impact when eating large boluses of carbohydrates. So you need a rapid insulin to deal with that.
I see. Okay. Now, how much time before you take in that pre-workout meal before you hit the gym?
I like an hour. I mean, it's just like you said. Yeah, hour and a half. I don't want. I'm. You were talking about it. I don't like feeling like that food's sitting heavy in my stomach when I'm lifting, man.
Right.
Especially if I'm squatting or doing deadlifts or barbell rows, something like
Yes.
that, man.
Yeah.
You know,
Anything like that that kind of pushes down on your stomach. And what's funny is that I still get it. It's still an uncomfortable feeling, even if I do an hour and a half before I've eaten and then hit the gym. So I can only imagine. Of course, we've all made the mistakes where you eat and 20 minutes you're in the gym, but it's still very uncomfortable during that training period, especially when you're doing something like that really pushes down on the gut.
oh yeah, yeah, you're going to be puking
Yeah,
or
yeah,
burping it up,
that's
and
not fun. Yeah.
yeah, and you know, and if especially if you're doing, you know, you think about it, if you're doing like really heavy activities like leg training and stuff, all your blood supply is going to be going to your legs. Your digestion is going to slow down during that period of time. A lot of
Ah,
times it'll end up making you sick.
okay.
But I like easy to digest stuff. And as far as the simple carbohydrates, sometimes I'll just dump some barbecue sauce on my chicken, you
Just for
know.
the sugar. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
just for the sugar to get some sugar in pre-workout.
Okay. Now, what's funny is that moving on to post-workout meals is a lot of people, it seems to be common, whether it's inaccurate or not, it seems to be common that people take simple carbs right after the workout. So my protein shake right after the workout is usually 2 scoops of whey isolate, a scoop of carbolin, glutamine, creatine. And then an hour later, I would have a meal. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, you know, that you hear about the workout window. There's some new studies out that say maybe it's not as necessary as we think it is. Um, but there is increased GLUT4 transport where your body's going to have an increased capacity to uptake glucose and amino acids when you're lifting weights. One, you know, you can force the issue with using insulin um, as well. So, but yeah, I mean, I think the big thing is post workout, you do need to get a bolus of carbohydrates, and you're going to be able to more aptly, or your body's going to have an increased capacity to synthesize glycogen post workout. Your body's going to have more capacity to uptake amino acids because of that increased GLUT4 transport. Like I said, we can force the issue with insulin, but that's sort of the idea of having those simple carbohydrates in post workout. I don't know. I used to do the simple carbohydrates post workout, but I don't do it anymore.
Okay.
I never really found. To me, it makes more sense to have them pre and intra than it
Okay.
does post workout. But I do like to get a meal in within an hour or so post workout. I used to be one of the guy that would drink the dextrose and whey protein shake immediately post workout, and I don't do that anymore.
Yeah, yes. Back in the day, I would do the orange Gatorade with a whey, or back in the day it was Metrics, remember?
Yeah,
And it would taste, so I'd get the protein and the carbs. Yeah, exactly. I would do the same kind of thing.
yeah. Now we know it seems to be there's studies that indicate that the increased GLUT4 transport can last up to 3 to 4 hours post workout. Now you do want to keep amino acids in present during that period of time. You are burning through glucose during your workout, so because you know it is lifting weights tends to be you tend to oxidize more glucose during, you know, your body can use
Mhm.
fats and ketones, etc. But glucose is the preferred fuel source for muscle contraction. So you are going to burn it up, but you know you do need to replenish glycogen stores. And you see bodybuilders. I mean, you know it, man. If you go in and hammer a bunch of carbohydrates, the next day you wake up fuller and you're going to have better
Oh,
pumps and all these other.
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, that goes without saying. Yeah, absolutely. So now the philosophy of a shake right after and then a meal an hour later, which I've been doing forever. What's your take on that?
Look, it's not going to hurt anything if you want to do that. It may or may not provide any additional benefit.
Mhm.
I stopped doing it just because my stomach is kind of a little rocky, a little
Oh,
dicey post workout sometimes. And I noticed that when I would do that shake with simple carbohydrates immediately when I got out of the gym, that it would upset my stomach.
right.
And I feel like that the intra workout shake with the amino acids in the high molecular weight carbohydrates are getting me that anyway. So there's not a desperate need to eat, have to slam that shake as soon as I will get to my car post workout. So a lot of times I'll just, my intro workout, a lot of when I'm pushing really hard will probably be like 50 grams of carbs and 10 to 15 grams of amino acids. So that's enough
Okay.
to get me home, and then I can eat a solid meal when I get home. But look, if you want to toss it in, it's not hurting anything. If you're using insulin, it may be necessary just to keep you from going hypo.
I see.
Just to be, you know, just to be safe. I don't know how much of a difference it's making. I stopped doing that years ago. I don't do it anymore, and I
Okay.
haven't done it in quite some time.
All right. I actually still do it because my attitude is if it's not broken, don't fix it.
Yeah, working for you by all means, do it. And look, when we're trying to grow, um, more food, is the right types of food is probably going to help.
Yeah. Now,
Um,
my meal after the shake, I still try to use a protein that breaks down easily, like you said, white fish, egg whites.
Same deal.
So is that's accurate?
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, and I think this is a problem that you see with a lot of bodybuilders, especially guys that are shoving a lot of food down. I think guys have figured this out now. And the reason why a lot of dudes had the big guts wasn't so much the GH, is that they just had a lot of digestive issues from eating foods that didn't process well. And if we're power shoving food in an off-season setting and trying to get down calories, I think we do need to prioritize foods that digest well, not just in the workout window, but throughout the day. Uh, you know, a lot of old school bodybuilders were eating red meat all throughout the day, and then they
Yes.
end up with distended guts,
Yeah.
and then because all that food's just sitting in your stomach.
Yeah.
And then you're eating another meal when the meal before, to me, that never made any sense either. When you're eating another meal and the previous meal's still sitting in your stomach, undigested, that can't be productive.
Right. Yes. Okay. Good. I'm actually glad you brought that up because that was my biggest mistake when I was competing 10 or 12 years ago. I would try to shovel so much food down that I knew my previous meal wasn't digested and the food would be up to here and it'd be very uncomfortable.
Yep.
And I learned the hard way that you really have to slowly build up to that caloric intake that you want to take in and not just starting down a bunch of food. It's uncomfortable. And like you said, I don't think it's very productive.
Yeah, and a lot of foods that guys, I mean, you can look it up if you want, but I have my clients run a low FODMAP foods. FODMAP foods are foods that tend to cause gut irritation, bloating, indigestion, but a lot of common bodybuilder foods, stuff that bodybuilders pound, an example would be broccoli, asparagus, things like that, tend to slow down digestion and cause bloating.
Yeah, you know
Yeah,
what? You're absolutely right. And what's funny, it's funny that you said that, is because the greens that I choose to take in now are everything that does not cause bloating. So I'll choose string beans over broccoli.
yep,
I'll choose different types of lettuces, romaine lettuce,
spinach, things like that. Yeah.
spinach, exactly. Everything that wouldn't cause because I would use early on, just like anybody else, you would use broccoli, cauliflower, and it just killed my stomach.
Literally, broccoli and cauliflower are probably the two worst things for digestion that you can use. I mean, and it's funny because that was the old school bodybuilding protocol, was broccoli, chicken, or beef, eating beef, broccoli, and rice. And I remember guys would pound a lot of brown rice too, and you end up with way too much fiber. They used to,
Yeah.
yeah, I remember that was another old school thing that guys have gotten away from doing. Now, it's not to say you don't need fiber, but what I like to do, kind of a hack during the day, so you're processing food. Basically eat like a baby during the day, man. Bananas, rice, chicken, whitefish, and then to get my fiber in, at night I'll take a fiber supplement to get my
That's
fiber in,
exactly what I do.
and then that pushes all the things through overnight.
That's exactly what I just did it actually.
Yeah,
So actually, now that you said that, I could plug Jay's fiber. He has a new fiber. It's excellent. I use it. You go on I Prevail Subs. It's actually a great fiber. Before that, I was using Fiberlized by Species. Either one of them is really good. But Jay's, I think he puts a little bit more time and effort into developing his fiber supplement. But now, okay, there has to be some benefit of taking in red meat from time to time. Obviously, it's not like 20 years ago where, you were shoveling cheeseburgers in like everybody thought they would, and, and steak and whatnot.
The McDouble diet.
Yeah, it was bad. And, everybody watched that video that Dave Palumbo did with Jim Pelletier, remember? And, and they would just go and they would just eat cheeseburgers. And I mean, I was guilty of it. But there has to be some benefit from eating, red meat from time to time.
Yeah, I mean, red meat does seem to have the most complete and balanced amino acid profile. Red meat is the most abundant natural source of creatine. So if you're eating red meat, you probably don't need to be taking creatine. The issue that we run into with overdoing red meat is I do 1 serving per day myself. A couple things with red meat that we do have to be concerned about is getting the saturated fat intake a little too high and watching lipids while we're on PEDs.
Right.
Another problem with red meat that we run into when we overdo it, if you're eating it for every meal, especially when you're taking PEDs, is all the iron intake, and you end up with high red blood cell count, hemoglobin, and hematocrit because you're overdoing the iron intake. So that's another concern. But I like to mix my protein sources. I rotate, but I have 1 serving of red meat per day. I usually do it at night before I go to bed. So I have a slower digesting protein overnight. The rest of the day, I'll usually do chicken, whitefish, shrimp. I'll even do some salmon here and there, egg whites, if you can tolerate them. Sometimes egg whites cause problems, but I try to diversify my protein sources. But I'm mainly prioritizing stuff that digests easily. I think it's another thing, like, and this was a knucklehead approach that I did when I was younger. I would just keep eating shit that's making me fart and bloat it, man.
It was so uncomfortable, man. It was so bad. And what was so funny, I think we talked about this before, is when I was very young and I was in love with bodybuilding in my late teens and early 20s. And I used to see these guys with huge stomachs, the Craig Tituses and Ronnie Colemans and even Lee Priest. And I would want that huge stomach because I wanted to be a bodybuilder like that, And then it turned out to be not a good idea. Now, let's say now you're competing, you want to do a contest, and you're obviously looking to, lose some weight because you want to get leaner for the contest. How does that change your pre and post workout diet?
I usually don't touch my pre and post workout meals. I leave the carbs in my pre and post workout meals, and I yank them elsewhere, because I want to keep gym performance high, right? That's my absolute last place I'm going to yank carbohydrates from. I'll yank it from other meals. Let's say if I'm eating 6 meals a day, if I really need to pull some fat off and increase fat burning, I'll go 0 carb on my other meals if I have to. But my pre and post and intra workout meals, I do not touch those because I think it's the impact that it's going to have on your performance in the gym, the impact that it's going to have on flattening yourself out. The problem I see especially with a lot of younger competitors is or just people dieting in general, is they overdo pulling the carbs out, and they end up just pancaking themselves. They end up looking like super flat. I'd rather pull some fats out personally than do that. Now, you do need a certain amount of fats in your diet. There is a certain amount of EFAs that you need for basic functions such as vitamin uptake and cellular repair and et cetera, endothelial function, brain health and stuff. But you really don't need a ton of fats. But for me, the single most performance enhancing macronutrient that we have when we're lifting weights is getting some carbs in.
So now, how long before you would actually pull those carbs before a contest? Because you keep it in your pre and post workout meals. Do you ever pull it out before a contest, or it depends on the individual?
It really depends on the individual, but a lot of times that last week going into the show, I'm actually putting food back in. I like filling guys out. I like having them ready. I like having them lean before the show, but usually the last week or 2 weeks. And I also cycle carbohydrate intake as well.
I've done that in the past. Yeah.
Yeah, I do carb cycling diets with my clients. So I will take 1 day a week where we push the carbs, even in a dieting phase where I push the carbohydrates really high to replenish glycogen, to allow.
Even if you have the carbs within the pre and post workout meals.
Yep.
So I wish you could train me back in the day, my last contest, what I did, because I was trained by such an old school guy that it was literally like tuna and string beans, and and die if you have to.
Yeah, I mean, look, there are times where that's necessary, but the way I look at it, if you didn't get super fat in your off season, you shouldn't have to go to those extremes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It was Guy Del Corso, and you want to talk about old, you talk about he passed away, and he was in his 70s when he passed away a couple of years ago, but he was competing since the 70s, and that was his, you had to suffer, period, end of story. That was it. If you went to him, he was gonna destroy you, to make sure you came and shredded in the contest. And then like 3 days before, he would carb you up, but then he would cut your water. But I think that was the old school style.
that
Right?
was the old school style. But let me ask you, when do you look your best? A week after your show, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's so why not duplicate that going into your show?
Yeah. You know what's funny? What's so funny that you said that. Lee Priest has been saying that forever. Like, he's been saying, don't do anything stupid the week before the show, right? I just have to give a quick shout out. Adam, thank you, man. I appreciate that. Adam, you always tip. You don't have to, brother. But thank you very much. It is greatly appreciated that you tip during the shows, man. So thank you very much, brother. It says, got here late. We'll have to rewatch, but thanks for the show as always. Of course, Adam, at any time, you can hit me up on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. You can email me, but I appreciate the tip, man. Thank you very much. So it's amazing how what was funny too is that, with the exception of the red meat all the time, during the, I would say, the late 80s into the early 90s, maybe the early to mid 90s, everything was basically chicken and rice, chicken and rice, chicken and rice. And then it seemed it shifted to get rid of the carbs and you got to do this keto diet. And it was protein, fats, protein, fats, protein, fats, right? And Palumbo was a big proponent of that because that used to work for him. And I remember the first contest I did, I was 23, and all I was eating was chicken and nuts. That was it. I used to come in shape, but maybe that's why I was smaller than everybody else,
Yeah, I mean, you look at most of the top pros now. Now, you could argue the conditioning is not what it was in the 90s. I certainly could see that argument, but most of the guys now have figured out that some sort of caloric cycling is the way to go. I think people have a better understanding of physiology and how macronutrient partitioning happens in the body. So, for example, like with what I'm talking about, like having a carb loading day once per week, you can, if you keep the fats low, and if we just kind of peel back and think about how the body partitions energy, you can go in a caloric surplus 1 day a week and not store body fat. And I think that makes people's heads explode when they think about it. Like, how the fuck am I doing that? But it's how your body partitions energy. Your body has a pretty large capacity for storing glycogen. And when you hear dudes talk about being flat on stage, that's essentially what they're talking about. It's your body. A big dude can be 7, 8, 10 pounds different from glycogen storage. Right. I mean, it's, if you're a large man and you can store 1,000 grams of carbs as muscle glycogen, there's 4 parts of that is going to be water. So you're going to have another 4,000 grams of water. So that's 5 kilograms. That's 11 pounds, man, of of glycogen that you're carrying, and all that's inside of your muscle. I mean, how do you think you're going to look with that additional weight on stage?
Right.
But if we do things correctly, you can actually eat in a caloric surplus that 1 day per week if you keep the fats low, because your body's going to prioritize those carbohydrates for synthesizing glycogen. And then you can also reset your metabolism a bit too, so you prevent that metabolic downregulation that happens when your diet or your metabolism just gets slower, and you have to do more cardio, and you have to eat less food, and all these other bad things that happen when you just eat less and less food and starve yourself.
Right.
And I think most pros now and most of the modern coaches have figured that out and do some variation of that. Even if guys are doing no carbs the rest of the day, they're usually doing some sort of refeed day once per week, reasonable refeed day.
Right. When I did the carbohydrate, because I've noticed I would start the carb rotating, I think 3 weeks out, and it obviously worked for me. If you go back in the picture I use on my thumbnail for Anabolic Academy, was the last contest I did, which was probably the best I ever looked. I mean, for me, obviously, I was never an elite bodybuilder. It would be 2 days. It would literally be 2 days chicken and vegetables, 2 days chicken and rice, 2 days chicken and fats, chicken and nuts. And then I would do it all over again. And that was the carb cycling that I would do, which seemed to work.
Yeah, that's similar to how I'll do it. I'll take like maybe 2 days a week and go 0 carbs.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Right. Okay. That makes sense. Obviously. All right. Now, when you say 0 carbs, do you mean take out the greens as well?
No, I'll leave greens in. I mean, they're
Okay.
just fiber.
Yeah. It's a different type of carbohydrate, right?
Yeah. I mean, your body, think about what insoluble fiber, that you're just going to shit it out. It doesn't actually do anything. That's how like some of these protein bars and stuff will say 0 net carbs, because they're just full of fiber or carbohydrates like sugar alcohols that can't be absorbed, but things like that.
All right. Last question, then I'm going to let you go. You put a post up on your Instagram, and I agree with you, but I do indulge in protein bars from time to time.
Oh, I do too, man. Who doesn't?
Yeah, but especially during my off season, especially when I'm not really my diet's really not that clean. But when my diet is clean, like right now, my diet's very clean, I get rid of protein bars immediately. Because I always believed the same thing, that I didn't think that it was a substantial form of protein. I thought it would be it's a cheap form of protein. And it seems to be just like a lot of chocolate and caramel and things like that just aren't supportive for a bodybuilder's diet. Because explain what your take on it was when you put it up on Instagram.
I was kind of shocked. I've seen a lot of people talk about protein bars recently. I guess there's been some controversy over some protein bars. I don't see that up on what's going on social media, to be honest with you. But I was just shocked to see that, and I've been talking to people that are eating them daily, sometimes multiple times a day, daily, as part of their regular diet. And look, I love the Metrics Apple Crisp one.
God, yes, remember that? Dude,
I love
a big candy bar, though. I mean,
yeah, it's like a fucking candy bar. But when you look at it, man, they're a highly processed food stuff.
Right.
They use all sorts of chemicals, and there are some that are better and others. But at the end of the day, it's a treat, right?
Yeah.
You're always going to be better off just eating chicken and rice or beef and rice, and you're going to have a better result. And I think if you're serious about bodybuilding and serious about physique enhancement, you're always going to be better off eating real food. It's just that simple.
Yeah,
right?
I think what happens is the majority of the people that want to go to the gym and train and aren't super advanced, they just get lazy and they don't want to food prep. So like, I'll just stop at 7-Eleven. I'll stop at the vitamin shop. I'll get a couple of protein bars. I'll be fine. You know what I mean? Instead of actually meal prepping. That seems to be the guys that take in a lot of protein bars. That seems to be the philosophy behind it. And I don't think they realize that they do more damage than good doing that.
Well, when you think of like, there's stuff in there that's really going to fuck your digestion up. A lot of them have sugar alcohols in them. Some of them have these pseudo fats now that aren't that your body can't fully absorb, but they taste like fat. They have usually whatever protein that they're using in is the cheapest, shittiest form of whey concentrate that you can get, and then you end up with the bubble guts after you farting
Yeah,
and
yeah,
you
right.
upset stomach from eating it.
Yeah.
I don't. To me, monsters and protein bars aren't a bodybuilding diet.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, yeah. You know what? We're all guilty of it, but you're 100%
Look, I
sure.
do it. I do it. I'm guilty of it too, man. I
Oh
do it.
yeah, 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 yeah.
You know,
Sometimes in the morning, I'm in a rush. I grab a sugar-free Monster, but you're 100% right, man. Absolutely.
and look, and I was, I had some dude that was very angry. I guess I must have called out his diet, and he was like, I'm on the road, and I'm like, bro, you can go into any gas station in America and get a yogurt, a hard boiled egg, and a banana. I mean,
Yeah,
that takes just as long to eat as the protein bar.
yeah,
You just like eating protein bars, man.
yeah, 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 yeah. It's I guess it's difficult when people are set in their ways to hear that. Hey, what you're doing is not as substantial as what you could be doing, and
I mean, it's the same thing with protein shakes. There are some higher quality protein shakes, but a lot of them are shitty, man.
yeah.
And
Oh, you
look,
can go by the price. You can go by the price.
yep.
If you're getting a tub of protein, it's $20. There's a problem.
I, look, here's my thing, man. If it's making you fart
Yeah.
and you're gassing your girlfriend out of the room, man,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
what does that tell you? Your body's not absorbing it, man. It's fermenting
Yeah.
in your gut, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's not like you're doing anything with it. But look, at the end of the day, once in a while is fine. It's just look at it as a treat, man. It's something you
Yeah.
do.
You know, Milos has a nickname, the Mind, right? They call him the Mind. I think we should call you the Brain. The Brain, man, because you are a wealth of bodybuilding knowledge. And as far as I'm concerned, you should be on there with Milos and Dave Palumbo debating because you really, really, every time I have you on, I learn more and more stuff.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Listen, Paul, thank you for coming on, man. It's always a pleasure. And what I said at the beginning is the God's honest truth. It means the world to me that you're my friend now and that you come on when I need you to come on. It really does. And if there's anything I can do for you, you could just hit me up, man, because it means a lot. It really does.
Awesome, dude. Appreciate you.
Paul, have a good weekend, man. I'll text you over the weekend. Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you.
All right, later.